What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys so much for watching the show. Wanted to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching sports. This app is really easy to use. You just pick more or less on a few player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your cash on a single lineup. Best of all, Prize Picks will give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for playing. Use the promo code PFF and download the app now. So their draft, all over the place. You have to start off at the top. They take Mason Graham at number 5 overall, but the story of that also involves them trading back from number 2. So they get an extra first-round pick next year. They got an extra second-round pick this year as well, which goes into their draft haul, but they pass up on Travis Hunter to do so. We both like Mason Graham a lot, so I'm very curious as to how you sort of analyze that move in this draft. In the second round, they took linebacker Carson Schwessinger and then Quinshaw Judkins as well. In the third round, Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end from Bowling Green, and then quarterback Dylan Gabriel at the back end of the third round. Fourth round, they went with running back Dylan Sampson, so double dipping on running back a little bit there. And then, of course, in the fifth round, pick 144, they stopped the slide of Shedeur Sanders for their second quarterback of this draft haul. The PFF staff gave the Browns a C+ for their draft grade here and how they navigated everything that went into it. Dalton, is that harsh? What do you think of this draft class overall?
I think it's so hard in the moment to give this Browns draft a grade because it feels like a large component of this is going to be 5 years from now when we go, okay, how good was Travis Hunter in Jacksonville and what did the Browns pass up in giving him up, right? So, I think I think one of the elements of that trade too, Jason Fitzgerald from Over the Cap does such a great job, and he said of all the draft day trades that happened, the Browns got the most surplus value out of any trade on draft weekend, right? Most of that coming from next year's first-round pick, and I think it speaks to the Browns taking a longer-term vision with the franchise. We've talked about it. They're not going to be really relevant until Deshaun Watson's contract is off the books, so they went for the second first-round pick next year. Mason Graham is still a player you can certainly build around. I had him as one of the 4 best football players in the draft. I think you did as well, either 4 or 5. So I think part of it's going to be the outside perception on Travis Hunter. And then you look at the rest of this draft and you go, okay, if you look at the value of what they got, I mean, the 2 running backs I really like. Getting 2 of the top 6 or 7 running backs in this draft in Judkins and Sampson, I think is a really good move to just reset this backfield right away. Getting Shedeur Sanders, the player, in the 5th round is an incredible value. Getting Shedeur Sanders, the lightning rod, controversial figure, we'll see where that goes the rest of the summer. I also like this landing spot for Harold Fannin Jr. I was curious where he would end up, but I think at the end of the day, we're going to be judging this Browns draft on 2 things. What did they pass up in Travis Hunter? And what do they do with the extra first-round pick next year, right? So I think it's a long-term vision. The one thing I was surprised about, and I was talking to somebody in the Cleveland media about this yesterday, not a single wide receiver or offensive lineman drafted here. And, I mean, obviously the 2 quarterbacks is the controversial part, but also 2 running backs, defensive tackle, linebacker, tight end. There's a lot of that some people wouldn't consider premium positions, right? And they have dire needs at wide receiver outside of Jerry Jeudy. They are going to have a dire need certainly next year with a lot of their offensive linemen on expiring contracts this year. So I think that's the part, especially offensive line, maybe even more so than receiver. They need help there. They've had a lot of injuries. That offensive line's getting older. They got to start building for the future. Maybe next year's 2 first-round picks are just both offensive linemen. I wouldn't even blame them at that point. But I think there's some things to like about this. There's some things not necessarily to like about it, and then there's a whole lot of in-between that's going to be determined over the next several years.
On the PFF draft show, we talked about this, how you can't really do draft grades and that much definitive instant analysis after round 1, because you really have to go to rounds 2 and 3. Woo! Excuse me. Before you actually judge a draft haul, because you have to look at everything that they were thinking. You have to think of their strategies, all that kinds of stuff. And with the Browns, it's hard for me to give this draft anything better than a C+, C-, C-, whatever, something in the C range in the moment. But it is one where you are correct. We sort of just have to wait to see how this plays out, because there is a lot of risk in a lot of different ways here. I agree with you. I was very surprised that they looked at this offensive line, understanding where the age and expiring contracts are of this group, and did not address offensive line at all whatsoever. I mean, in 2 years, all of their starting 5 offensive linemen right now might not be on their starting lineup. There's a reality that exists there for them. So to not get ahead of that, I was a little surprised about at all whatsoever. I was also surprised that they didn't go wide receiver, although Harold Fandon can sort of be viewed as that offensive weapon. Although I think that Harold Fandon was a little bit overdrafted for where they drafted him. You just really have to have a specific plan for them. We'll see if the Cleveland Browns do. I like Mason Graham. Getting Mason Graham and an extra first-round pick next year is good. I can't get over the fact that we use the word generational way too much when it comes to prospects. But if there is a prospect who is generational in this class, it's Travis Hunter. I wouldn't have moved. I would not have made this trade. Like, even for getting an extra first-round pick and Mason Graham, which I think is a good consolation prize about it. I think it's decent process. You're still giving up Travis Hunter. He's the number one player on my board, basically wire to wire, and I think that he was the player in this class that you wanted to come away with. So I think what also goes into this is the fact that they're likely going to get aggressive in next year's quarterback draft. That's how they operated getting an extra first-round pick, in my opinion. That's why you wait all the way until the 3rd round, despite having picks at the very top of the draft and 2 picks at the very top of the 2nd round, and you don't take quarterback with any of them. You wait till 94 to take Dillon Gabriel, and then, again, I don't have inside information on this, but it sure doesn't feel like that Shedeur Sanders pick in the 5th round was made by the front office or the coaching staff. It feels like it was a different phone call that ended up calling in to make this pick possible, because if it is the coaching staff, then all of a sudden I have all sorts of questions of, well, hold on. Well, then why didn't you take this guy in the 3rd round? You think Dillon Gabriel's 50 picks better than Shedeur Sanders? Now all of a sudden I don't really know how to analyze where they're at with how they're judging the quarterback position in their current quarterback room. I just think that this draft is all over the place. But until we see what happens with these quarterbacks, until we see what happens with Mason Graham, and until we see, most importantly, what happens next year with their 2 first-round picks, it's hard for me to love this draft from them. Instead, I just think there's a lot of confusion on how they prioritize things, positions that they didn't go after, not drafting Travis Hunter, and then what happened with their quarterback selection. So I think this one of a C+. I'm right there with him. I don't really know how to give it a better grade than that at this point in time. Anything else from the Browns? Are we moving on to the Steelers?
No, I mean, I think, again, you just look at the results of it, and what we're going to look back on is they traded Travis Hunter for Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins, Dylan Sampson, and a first-rounder next year. And I'm not sure that every team in the league would have traded Hunter for Mason Graham and 2 running backs. So next year is really going to be the interesting one for the Browns. Look, the summer is going to be fun, too, with this quarterback battle, whatever is going on here. But I really think
the right word? Is
fun
the right word?
Fun is absolutely the right word. Absolutely. With Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, maybe Joe Flacco, that's absolutely the right word, at least in the summer and the preseason. Once we get to the season, maybe it won't be as fun in Cleveland. But you never know. Maybe one of these 2 rookies works it out.